If you're listening to this, don't forget to subscribe, because what I'm about to tell you is not something you hear every day. My name is Daniel Brooks, I'm 32, and up until last summer I would have told you I was the most skeptical man alive. I laughed at conspiracy videos, rolled my eyes at UFO enthusiasts, and avoided horror stories that involved aliens because, honestly, they felt too far-fetched to scare me. I was just an ordinary guy living in a small town in Ohio, working a 9-to-5 at an auto repair shop, and spending weekends fishing at the lake or hanging out with a couple of friends over cheap beer. Life was simple, predictable, and in my mind, perfectly normal. But then it happened, and ever since that night, I can't look at the sky the same way. I can't even trust my own memories anymore. It all started on a late evening in July. I'd stayed longer at the shop than usual, finishing paperwork and making sure the new shipment of parts was locked up. By the time I walked out, the streets were already empty, and the summer air carried that strange stillness that makes you notice every sound. Crickets chirping, a dog barking far away, the hum of a power line overhead. I decided to take the back roads home. They cut through open farmland, lined with cornfields that reached above my head when I drove by. I'd taken that route hundreds of times before, so I didn't think twice. But a few miles down the road, I noticed something unusual. At first, I thought it was just a plane, maybe even a helicopter flying low. There was a bright white light moving slowly across the horizon, too steady to be a star, too close to be anything normal. I pulled over on the shoulder, half curious, half annoyed that I was even paying attention. I leaned against my old Chevy, arms crossed, telling myself it was nothing. But then the light stopped, just like that, completely still, hanging above the cornfields as if it were waiting for me to notice. My stomach sank, though I had no reason why. Planes don't just stop midair. I rubbed my eyes, muttered something under my breath, and looked again. That's when the light shifted color, from white to a pulsing blue, and then it began descending, not fast, but deliberate, lowering itself until it hovered maybe 100 feet above the ground. I swear the night went quiet. The crickets stopped. The dog barking in the distance cut off. Even the air itself felt heavier, pressing against my chest. I should have gotten in the truck and driven off right there, but instead I found myself walking closer, my boots crunching against gravel, my breath shallow. I don't know if it was curiosity or if something was pulling me toward it, but my body moved like it wasn't entirely my own. When I reached the edge of the cornfield, I finally saw it clearly. It wasn't just a light. It was a craft, smooth, metallic, shaped like a disc but with edges that rippled faintly as though it wasn't entirely solid. A faint hum vibrated in the air, low and steady, the kind of sound you feel in your bones more than you hear with your ears. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. I whispered, "No way, this can't be real." And yet there it was, impossible to deny. Then came the moment that changed everything. A beam of light, narrow and precise, shot straight down from the craft. It wasn't blinding, but it was intense, like standing in front of a welding torch without goggles. My body froze, and for a second I thought I'd lost all control. I tried to run, tried to turn back to the truck, but my legs refused to move. My chest tightened as if invisible hands were pressing against me, and I felt myself being lifted, slowly, terrifyingly, off the ground. My arms flailed uselessly, my voice caught in my throat, and the only sound I managed was a strangled gasp as the world beneath me shrank. The truck, the road, the cornfields, all of it blurred as I rose higher and higher into the beam, and then everything went black. When I came to, it was like waking from a dream I couldn't quite remember. My eyes opened slowly, my head heavy, my chest tight as though the air itself weighed me down. At first, I thought I was in a hospital. The ceiling above me was smooth, pale, almost luminous, giving off a glow that didn't come from any lamp I could see. The air smelled sterile, metallic, sharp like ozone after a thunderstorm. I tried to sit up, but straps pinned my arms and legs. Panic surged through me instantly. I thrashed, pulled, kicked, but the restraints wouldn't budge. They weren't leather or metal. They felt more like a living material, soft yet unbreakable, wrapping around my wrists and ankles with no seams, no buckles. "Hey!" I shouted, my voice cracking. "Let me out. What the hell is this?" My words echoed strangely, as if the room itself was swallowing them. Then, from the corner of my vision, something moved. I turned my head as far as the restraints allowed and froze. A figure stepped into view. Tall, much taller than me, maybe 7 feet, with limbs too long and too thin for any human. Its skin shimmered faintly, pale gray with a bluish undertone, smooth like polished stone. The head was elongated, not grotesque but unnerving, and the eyes, huge, black, reflective, caught the light like mirrors. They didn't blink. They just stared at me, calm, almost clinical. My throat dried instantly. Every alien movie, every nightmare I'd ever dismissed as fiction, suddenly crashed into reality. I wanted to scream again, but no sound came. The being tilted its head, almost curious, and raised a hand. Its fingers were long, delicate, and as it moved them, a panel slid out from the wall beside me, glowing with shifting symbols I couldn't understand. They looked like a language, fluid, geometric shapes that rearranged themselves as the being passed its hand over them. The restraints around me tightened slightly, and I gasped, my chest heaving. "Please," I managed, voice trembling. "I don't know what you want. Just let me go." It didn't answer, not with words. Instead, I felt something, like a vibration deep inside my skull, faint at first, then growing until it was impossible to ignore. It wasn't sound, not exactly, but meaning. A voice without a voice. Calm, unemotional, said, "Observe, record, do not fear." My eyes widened. I shook my head violently. "What? No, this isn't real. This is a nightmare." But the vibration pulsed again. "Observe, record, do not fear." The figure moved closer, its shadow falling across me. Another being appeared on the opposite side, identical in height and build, its presence silent and heavy. Between them, they rolled a strange device closer to the table. It hovered slightly above the ground. No wheels, no sound, just drifting forward with impossible ease. At the center of it was a sphere, glowing faintly, spinning slowly on its axis as though suspended in water. My chest tightened further. I felt heat radiating from it, but it wasn't burning. It was penetrating, reaching into me, scanning me in ways I couldn't understand. My skin tingled, every nerve alight, and then an image flashed in my head. Not in front of me, not projected in the room, but inside my mind. I saw the earth below, my town, the winding roads, the little auto shop where I worked. I saw myself driving my truck, laughing with my friends, standing in my kitchen making coffee. All of it played like memories pulled straight out of my brain. "Stop!" I screamed, thrashing against the restraints, my heart pounding so violently I thought it would burst. "Get out of my head!" The image shifted again, this time showing places I didn't recognize. Vast landscapes under alien skies, twin suns casting shadows across mountains that glowed faintly with blue veins of light. Structures unlike anything built by humans. Towering spires that twisted upward like frozen smoke, connected by glowing bridges suspended in midair. Beings, more of them, moving with quiet grace through cities that pulsed with energy. My breath caught in my throat. Were these their memories? Their home? Or was it just another trick to break me down? The pressure in my skull grew unbearable. I clenched my teeth until my jaw ached, tears stinging my eyes. Then, just as suddenly, the images vanished, leaving me gasping in the sterile, glowing room. My body trembled uncontrollably. The two beings stepped back, their heads tilting in unison, as if studying how much I could endure. The vibration in my head pulsed once more. This time, the message was different. He is compatible. I barely had time to process the words before the room shifted. Not physically, not with walls moving, but somehow the light changed, the glow intensifying and then softening in a rhythm I could feel in my chest. My body was still restrained, yet I felt a strange pull, like the air itself was holding me, not just the straps. Then the two beings moved closer again, and this time, one of them extended a hand toward my forehead. I flinched instinctively, but a soft hum began to resonate in the room, soothing, almost hypnotic. Couldn't look away. The hand stopped an inch from my skin, and then a beam, faint and bluish, connected us. I felt no pain, just a tingling, like tiny electric currents traveling from the tip of its fingers through my skull. And then, clarity. Images, thoughts, feelings I couldn't describe flooded my mind. They weren't mine. They were theirs, yet somehow understandable. I realized horrifyingly that compatible meant they could connect to me, not just observe me, but communicate directly, share thoughts, memories, even emotions. Panic surged again. I can't. I started to scream, but the vibration returned. Do not resist. You will learn. You will understand. And then a memory I had never told anyone appeared. My mother's funeral. The grief, the confusion, the guilt I carried for things I hadn't even done. They weren't prying maliciously. They were pulling fragments of my mind, sifting through them. I felt exposed, violated, yet not in a cruel way. Just cataloged. When the beam withdrew, I slumped, gasping. My own voice sounded strange when I tried to speak, but I managed, trembling. What are you doing to me? The being tilted its head. We are observers. We record. We test. You will see. A panel on the wall lit up again, this time displaying symbols in motion, faster than I could follow. A screen-like surface extended from it, and in the center appeared shapes I recognized: cells, molecules, faint outlines of the human body. I realized they were showing me my own anatomy in real time, as if they could see inside me better than any MRI or scan I'd ever had. The other being stepped closer with another device, thin, elongated, glowing softly. It hovered over my chest. I expected pain, fear, something sharp, but instead, I felt warmth and then a strange resonance in my heart. My heartbeat slowed, deepened unnaturally. My thoughts became clearer but also different. I felt as if my senses were being expanded, not just my sight or hearing, but my perception of time, space, even my own body. I could hear the hum of the craft, the faint vibration in the walls, the flow of air in ways I never imagined noticing. And then came the strangest sensation: empathy. Not just my own emotions, but theirs. I felt their attention, their curiosity, the methodical way they approached me, their silent questions. Why me? I whispered aloud. You are human. Your mind is adaptable. Your experiences are instructive. The words weren't spoken. I felt them directly in my mind. And then they began a new procedure. Not painful, not invasive in a conventional sense, but intimate, as if they were mapping my consciousness onto something else. Shapes appeared in my mind, geometries, patterns of light and shadow, as if they were trying to show me the universe through their perception. At first, I resisted, overwhelmed by information, thoughts spilling over, images flashing too fast for my comprehension. But slowly I began to understand. I could see connections between everything: light, energy, matter, even time itself seemed fluid. My fear clashed with wonder. Was I losing myself? Or was I finally seeing something I'd never been capable of before? Hours or maybe minutes. Time had no meaning passed this way. They probed, tested, connected, but never harmed. And then suddenly they stopped. Both beings stepped back, hands folded, heads tilted in unison. The panel on the wall glowed steadily, and the vibration in my head slowed to a gentle pulse. You are ready. Observation complete. Interaction allowed. I didn't know what that meant, but my body was shaking uncontrollably. I realized I was crying tears of fear, wonder, and something else I couldn't name. They didn't respond, not with words, but I felt a presence, a calm acknowledgement. And then the most human thought struck me. How long have I been here? I had no idea. The sky outside was a pale memory in my mind. My truck, my road, my home, all distant, inaccessible. I had become a subject, a witness, a participant in something beyond comprehension. I didn't know if I would ever go back, or if I even wanted to. All I knew was that my life as Daniel Brooks had ended the moment the light touched me, and whatever came next would change me forever. The days, or what I thought were days, blurred together. The concept of time inside the craft was meaningless. Sometimes the beings would appear, silent, observing, allowing me to explore the glowing corridors that twisted like liquid light. The walls pulsed softly, and I quickly realized that they weren't solid in the way I understood. They seemed semi-transparent, responsive, almost alive. As I walked or floated, it was hard to tell. The air felt different, denser, charged with a current I could sense with every nerve ending. The beings never spoke, yet I understood them more clearly than I ever understood another human. Thoughts, feelings, intentions, they flowed between us like water. They showed me images of their homeworld. Immense cities suspended above oceans of liquid light, creatures moving in harmony, building structures that obeyed the laws of physics I couldn't even name. And then came the moment I'll never forget. A new device appeared in the center of a chamber. It wasn't a machine in any human sense. It hovered like a sphere of refracted light, constantly shifting, splitting into smaller shapes and reassembling itself. As I approached, I realized it was interacting with me, reading me, learning from me, responding to my emotions. A wave of fear struck me first, sharp and immediate, but then it shifted into understanding. I saw visions of Earth through it, not from my eyes, not from a camera, but through some higher perspective. Cities, forests, oceans, and finally people. Strangers going about their lives, children playing, adults arguing, lovers holding each other. Every action, every thought, a thread in a web that I could sense more than see. And then the words came, not spoken, but felt. You are a bridge. I stumbled back, confusion overwhelming me. A bridge? What do you mean? I didn't speak aloud. The beings understood the question before I even formed it. Between your kind and ours, observation alone is incomplete. We require understanding. You provide connection. The weight of their meaning hit me. They weren't here to harm, not really. They wanted comprehension, a way to experience humanity through someone who could survive it. But the cost was terrifying. My mind, my perceptions, my memories, all were now tools open to them, vulnerable yet essential. As I tried to process this, a shift occurred in the chamber. Shapes of light twisted and elongated, forming something resembling my friends, my family, even my mother, alive in memory, yet distorted by alien perception. I felt their presence, their emotions, their voices in a way I never had before, and I cried for hours I couldn't measure. My own identity felt fragile, stretched thin between my body and the consciousness that now connected me to beings I couldn't fully comprehend. Then came the experiment, if that's what it could be called. They guided me to a platform that felt like air itself, solid enough to stand on but strangely intangible. The sphere of light rose, hovered at chest level, and I realized it was scanning, mapping not just my body, but my mind. Thoughts, fears, desires, even secrets I had never admitted aloud. Each revelation was absorbed instantly by the sphere, transmitted silently to the beings observing. I felt naked, exposed, yet strangely trusted. The process was not painful but overwhelming. My memories replayed. My first love, my failures, the times I had lied, the moments I had felt joy. Everything cataloged, analyzed, understood. And then, a new sensation, a projection. I was no longer myself, yet I saw through my own eyes. I glimpsed events in the past I had only imagined, alternative choices I could have made, lives I might have lived. It was intoxicating and terrifying at once, the line between reality and imagination dissolving. I wanted to scream, to protest, but the being's presence was calming, instructive. Observe, learn, connect, share. The repetition of their words became a mantra, guiding me, grounding me, and through it, I began to understand a terrifying truth. I was not the first. Others had come before me, humans like me, chosen for their adaptability, their capacity to endure and connect. Some had vanished, some had returned, and some had become part of their network, minds linked in ways I couldn't yet fathom. My chest tightened as the thought settled in. Would I ever return to my life? Would I ever be able to live as Daniel Brooks again? Or had that part of me already begun to dissolve, threading into something larger, alien yet familiar? The realization was suffocating. I wanted to scream, to fight, to run, but the very thought seemed almost irrelevant. I was already caught in their world, bound by connection and understanding beyond my comprehension. And just when I felt I might lose myself entirely, the beings receded, leaving me alone for the first time. The chamber was empty, the pulsing light softer, almost inviting. And yet, I knew this was only the beginning. Whatever they wanted, whatever they were preparing me for, I was now a participant, a bridge, a witness to a universe beyond imagining. And as I stood there, trembling, I realized that my life, my past, even my fears, were no longer entirely mine. They were part of something larger, a network I could not escape. And still, a small, defiant part of me whispered, I will survive this. I have to. Time had lost all meaning inside the craft. I no longer measured it by hours or minutes, only by sequences of experiences, pulses of understanding, and interactions with the beings who no longer seemed entirely separate from me. And yet, despite everything, a stubborn human part of me clung to the thought of home. I didn't know why. I had no guarantee I would ever return, but it became an anchor, a fragile thread tying me to the life I had left behind. Then, one day, or maybe it was night, I could no longer tell, a shift occurred. The beings approached me, silent but urgent. Their presence was heavy, insistent, and I felt their thought vibrating in my mind. You may return. You may choose. Observation complete. Bridge established. My heart skipped a beat. Return. The word itself sounded like a promise I didn't believe I deserved. I want to go home, I whispered aloud, my voice hoarse from disuse. Understand. Adapt. Remember. The vibrations surged through me, and images of my home. The little Ohio town, the auto shop, the narrow back roads I had driven hundreds of times, flooded my consciousness. I felt tears stinging my eyes. One of the beings extended a hand, and the familiar pulse of the connection began again. But this time it was different. Calmer, directed. I felt myself lifted, not by a beam, but by the gentle current of their control. My mind and body were merged with the craft, yet I retained a flicker of my own will. Outside, I glimpsed the earth, spinning beneath me, smaller and more fragile than I had ever seen it from the ground. The sight filled me with a mixture of awe and terror. Then, suddenly, the beam that had taken me months ago appeared once more, but in reverse. I descended slowly, the familiar fields of Ohio coming into view. My chest tightened with anticipation, fear, and a strange sense of gratitude. The craft hovered above the cornfields near my back road, and then, almost imperceptibly, it withdrew. I hit the gravel shoulder with a soft thud, my knees buckling. The air smelled the way it always did in summer, fresh, with the faint tang of the nearby creek and the dry dust of the road. I gasped, taking in the night sky, stars ordinary, familiar, and yet, for me, they would never look the same again. I staggered to my truck, every muscle trembling, every nerve still buzzing with residual connection to the craft and the beings. The engine started with a shudder, and I drove slowly, the hum of the world around me suddenly deafening. For the first time in what felt like centuries, I was alone. And yet, part of me was not alone. That connection, the bridge, lingered in the back of my mind, a permanent thread linking me to something I could not fully understand. Back in town, everything seemed untouched, as if no time had passed. My friends were there, my neighbors, the familiar shops. I could have laughed with relief, celebrated my return, but the experience had changed me. I no longer felt like the same man. My mind carried impressions of worlds I could not describe, of beings who understood me in ways no human could. And still, life went on. I returned to my work at the auto shop, drove the same back roads, drank the same cheap beer with the same friends. But every ordinary moment was now tinged with the extraordinary. At night, I would look up at the sky, and sometimes a faint pulse of blue light would blink back at me from the distance, subtle, almost imperceptible, and I would smile knowing that whatever happened up there, whatever I had experienced, it had changed me forever. I am Daniel Brooks. I was taken, I was observed, I was connected, and now, I live knowing that the universe is far wider, stranger, and more alive than I ever dared imagine. And if you ever see a light in the night sky, hovering, still patient, remember this. Some things are real, some things are waiting, and sometimes, if you are lucky or unlucky, you might become part of something beyond human understanding.